The rain in Seoul doesn't just fall, it attacks. It was coming down in sheets, cold and heavy, blurring the neon lights of Hongdae into messy streaks of pink and blue. I was running, clutching my violin case like it was a baby, trying to get to the subway station before my cheap boots soaked through completely. I was already late for my shift at the jazz club, and my boss, Mr. Choi, had promised to fire me if I was late one more time. I ducked into a narrow alleyway to take a shortcut. It was darker here, the smell of old garbage and wet concrete filling my nose. I splashed through a puddle, cursing under my breath. Then I heard it. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't the wind. It was a sniffle. A tiny, choked sound of misery. I stopped. I should have kept running. I was a foreigner in this country, a black woman struggling to pay rent, barely keeping my head above water. I didn't have time for trouble, but my feet wouldn't move. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. The beam cut through the rain and landed on a pile of cardboard boxes. A boy. He couldn't have been more than 5 years old. He was curled into a tight ball, shivering so hard his teeth were chattering audibly. He was wearing a suit, a tiny, expensive-looking black suit that was now ruined with mud. But what broke my heart was what he was holding. A violin. It was snapped in half at the neck, the strings hanging loose like dissected veins. "Hey," I whispered, stepping closer. I lowered my voice, trying not to scare him. "Are you okay?" He looked up. His eyes were huge, dark, and filled with a terror so deep it stole the breath from my lungs. He didn't speak. He didn't scream. He just stared at me, trembling. "Where are your parents?" I asked, crouching down in the mud, ignoring the water seeping into my jeans. "Nothing." He just squeezed the broken violin tighter. "Can you talk?" I asked gently. He shook his head slowly. Then, with a shaking hand, he reached into his wet jacket pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. He held it out to me. I took it. It was thick, expensive cardstock. On it was an address in Hanam-dong, the richest district in Seoul. The place where the chaebols and the politicians lived behind high walls. "Is this where you live?" He nodded. I looked at the time. I was going to be fired. I was definitely going to be fired. But I looked at his small, freezing face, and I knew I couldn't leave him here. "Okay," I said, offering him my hand. "Come on. I'll take you home." He hesitated. He looked at my hand, my dark skin, my long black hair that was now plastered to my face with rain. Then he looked at my eyes. He must have seen something safe there because he reached out. His hand was like ice. I pulled him up and wrapped my coat around his shoulders. "Welcome to Stories Pulse. Before we find out who this little boy belongs to, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment down below where you are watching from. Welcome back, besties, and if you are new here, welcome to the drama. Now, let's go to Hanam-dong." The taxi driver didn't want to take us. When I showed him the address, his eyes went wide in the rearview mirror. No, he muttered in broken English. "Bad place. Scary place." "Just drive," I said, my voice sharp. "Please. The boy is freezing." He grumbled but drove. The ride took 40 minutes. We left the noisy, crowded streets of Hongdae and drove up the winding, silent hills of Hanam-dong. The houses here weren't houses, they were fortresses. Massive concrete walls, security cameras on every corner, gates that looked like they could withstand a tank. The taxi stopped at the very top of the hill, in front of a massive black steel gate. There was no nameplate, just a black lotus flower symbol etched into the metal. "You get out here," the driver said nervously. I go. "No, stop here." I paid him, and he sped off before I could even close the door properly. "Okay," I whispered to the boy, squeezing his hand. "Let's get you home." I pressed the intercom button. "Who is it?" A voice sparked instantly. "I found a boy," I said, leaning into the speaker. "He has this address." The gate didn't just open. It buzzed, and then 4 men in black suits swarmed out of the side entrance. They didn't look like security guards. They looked like soldiers. They had earpieces and bulges under their jackets that were definitely guns. I instinctively pulled the boy behind my legs. "Let go of him," one of the men ordered, reaching for us. The boy screamed a silent, open-mouthed scream and buried his face in my coat. He refused to let go of my hand. "Don't touch him," I shouted, surprised by my own anger. "Can't you see he's terrified?" The guards paused, confusing passing between them. "Let them in," a voice said from the speaker. It was a different voice. Deeper, smoother, and terrifyingly cold. The guards stepped aside, parting like the Red Sea. They motioned for me to walk forward. My legs were shaking, but I kept my chin up. I walked up the long driveway, the boy clinging to my side. The front door of the mansion opened. I expected a worried mother. I expected a crying grandmother. Instead, I saw him. He stood in the doorway, framed by the golden light from inside. He was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled the frame of the door. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. His hair was black, swept back, but slightly messy, as if he had been running his hands through it. He was devastatingly handsome. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, lips that looked like they never smiled. But his eyes were the scariest things I had ever seen. They were pitch black, void of any warmth, sharp enough to cut glass. He didn't look at me. He looked straight at the boy. "Minjun," he said. His voice was low, vibrating through the wet air. It wasn't a question. It was a command. The boy, Minjun, let go of my hand. He walked slowly toward the man. He didn't run to hug him. He walked like a soldier reporting for duty. He stopped in front of the man and bowed his head. The man didn't hug him. He didn't check for injuries. He just stared at the broken violin in the boy's hand. "You broke it," the man said. No emotion. Just a statement of fact. Minjun flinched. He was freezing in an alleyway. I snapped. I couldn't help it. The lack of affection, the coldness, it made my blood boil. He was alone in the rain. He's a child, not a package you misplaced. The man's eyes snapped to mine. For the first time, he actually looked at me. The air in my lungs vanished. The intensity of his gaze was like a physical weight. He scanned me from my muddy boots to my wet, long black hair. His eyes lingered on my face for a second too long, darkening with something I couldn't read. It wasn't gratitude. It looked like hunger. But it was gone so fast I thought I imagined it. "Who are you?" he asked. "Vanessa," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I found him in Hongdae. Did he speak to you?" "What? Did he speak?" He took a step toward me. He smelled like expensive sandalwood and danger. He was looming over me now, invading my personal space. "No," I whispered, backing up a step. He didn't say a word. The man stared at me for another agonizingly long second. Then he reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a checkbook. He wrote something down quickly, tore the paper out, and held it out to me. "Payment," he said. "For returning my property." Property. He called his son property. I looked at the check. It was for 10 million won. More money than I made in 6 months. I could pay my rent. I could buy a new violin. I could fly home to see my mom. But then I looked at Minjun. He was standing behind his father, peeking out at me with those big, sad eyes. He gave me a tiny, almost invisible wave. I felt a heat rise in my chest that had nothing to do with the temperature. I took the check. The man, the father, started to turn away, dismissing me like I was a delivery driver. Re-yip. The sound was loud in the quiet night. The man stopped. He turned back slowly. I held up the 2 halves of the check. Then I tore them again. And again. I let the pieces of paper fall into the muddy puddle at his feet. "I didn't bring him back for your money," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "And he is not property. He is a little boy who needs a father, not a bank account. You should be ashamed of yourself." The guards gasped. One of them actually reached for his gun. But the man, he didn't get angry. He laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. A sound that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He stepped closer to me, so close that the toes of his expensive leather shoes touched my muddy boots. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. I could feel the heat radiating off him. "You have spirit," he murmured, his voice dropping to a husky whisper that sent a shiver straight down my spine. "But you are foolish. You just walked into the lion's den, insulted the king, and tore up a fortune." He reached out. I thought he was going to hit me. I flinched. But he didn't hit me. His hand, large and warm, brushed a wet lock of hair away from my cheek. His thumb grazed my skin, just for a second. The touch was electric. It burned. "Go," he whispered. "Before I decide to keep you too." "Keep me?" I choked out. "Leave," he roared suddenly, his face hardening back into stone. "No." I turned and ran. I ran down the driveway, past the confused guards, and out the gate. I ran until my lungs burned. I didn't know then that I wasn't running away. I was running into a trap that had been set for me years ago. I didn't know that by saving his son, I had just signed a contract with the devil himself. And the devil, he didn't just want his son back. He wanted everything. I got home to my tiny basement apartment, shivering and wet. I locked the door, leaning against it, trying to catch my breath. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I couldn't get his face out of my mind. The way he looked at me. Like I was a meal. Like I was something he wanted to devour. I stripped off my wet clothes and stood under the hot shower, trying to wash the feeling of his eyes off my skin. It didn't work. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. The next morning, my life fell apart. It started with a phone call at 8 a.m. "Vanessa King?" It was my landlord. "You need to leave. Today." "What?" I sat up, clutching the phone. "My rent is paid. I have a contract." "The building was sold," he said bluntly. "The new owner wants it empty. Now. Out by noon or I will call the police. You can't do this." I screamed, but he hung up. I was panic packing my bags when my phone rang again. It was the director of the music school where I taught piano to kids. "Vanessa," she said, her voice sounding strange. Strained. "Don't come in today. Or tomorrow." "What is going on?" I felt like the floor was tilting under my feet. We are restructuring. We don't need you anymore." "I'm sorry. But..." Click. I sat on the edge of my bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes. In the span of 2 hours, I was homeless and unemployed. This wasn't bad luck. This was a hit. I grabbed my bag and ran out of the apartment. I needed to go to school. I needed to talk to the director face to face. Maybe I could fix this. It was a sunny day, but the air felt heavy. Oppressive. I walked fast toward the subway, my head down. I turned the corner onto the main street, and a black van screeched to a halt right next to me. The side door slid open. 3 men jumped out. They weren't the polished soldiers from the mansion. These men were rough. Tattoos on their necks, scars on their faces. They smelled like stale smoke and violence. "Get her," one of them growled in Korean. I tried to run, but they were too fast. A hand grabbed my arm, wrenching me back. Another hand covered my mouth, stifling my scream. They were dragging me toward the van. "Get in, bitch," the man hissed in my ear. "The dragon will pay a lot to get his little girlfriend back." Girlfriend? The dragon? I kicked and scratched, my nails digging into the man's arm. He swore and raised a fist to punch me. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the pain. It never came. There was a sickening crunch, like bone breaking. The hand on my mouth vanished. I opened my eyes. The man who had been holding me was on the ground, screaming, clutching a leg that was bent at the wrong angle. Standing over him was a man in a gray suit. Not the father, but one of the guards from the night before. And behind him, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. The back window rolled down slowly. Ryu Kang-woo sat there. He was wearing sunglasses, looking calm, bored even. As if he wasn't watching a man scream in agony 5 feet away from him. He took off his sunglasses. His dark eyes locked onto mine. I was shaking, gasping for air, clutching my torn shirt. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't offer comfort. "Get in," he said. "What?" I breathed. "You were careless," he said coldly. "Now you are a target. Get in the car, Vanessa. Unless you want them to finish the job." I looked at the men on the ground. I looked at the crowd starting to gather. I looked at him. I had no home. I had no job. And now, apparently, I had a price on my head. I opened the car door and slid onto the leather seat next to him. The lock clicked shut. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice trembling. He signaled the driver to move. He didn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead, his profile sharp and unyielding. "Home," he said. "My home." He turned to me then. A small, terrifying smirk played on his lips. "No," he whispered. "Mine. You saved my son. Now his enemies are your enemies. You don't leave until I say you leave." He leaned back, closing his eyes. "Welcome to my world, Vanessa." The car ride was suffocating. Not because of the heat, the AC was blasting a steady stream of Arctic air, but because of the man sitting next to me. Ryu Kang-woo didn't speak. He didn't check his phone. He just sat there, emanating a silent, heavy power that filled the entire vehicle. I was pressed against the door, trying to make myself as small as possible. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, a stark contrast to the cold air. Every time the car turned, his shoulder brushed against mine. Every time, a jolt of electricity shot through me. It was infuriating. I should be terrified. I was terrified. But underneath the fear, there was this treacherous, magnetic pull. "Stop shaking," he said suddenly. He didn't turn his head. "I'm not shaking," I lied. My hands were trembling in my lap. "You are vibrating the seat," he said dryly. "It is annoying. Maybe if you didn't have your goons abduct me, I wouldn't be shaking." I snapped. He turned then. Slowly. He looked at me with that same intense, unreadable expression. "Abduct?" He raised a perfect eyebrow. "I just saved your life. Those men were going to sell you to a brothel in Macau. You would have fetched a high price. Exotic. Rare." His eyes dropped to my lips, then lower, scanning my body in a way that made me feel naked. It wasn't lecherous. It was amazing. Like he was calculating my value. "You're disgusting," I hissed. "I am realistic," he countered smoothly. "And right now, the reality is that you are homeless, jobless, and marked for death because you decided to play hero." The car slowed down. We were back at the fortress. The black gates opened, swallowing us whole. The car stopped. The door opened. "Get out," he ordered. I stepped out into the driveway. It was daylight now, and the house looked even more imposing. A brutalist block of concrete and black glass perched on the hill like a predator watching the city. "What now?" I asked, hugging my arms around myself. "Do I get a cell?" "Don't be dramatic," he muttered, walking past me. "Come." I followed him. I had no choice. We walked into the grand foyer. It was breathtaking. Black marble floors, high ceilings, modern art that looked like it cost more than my entire life's earnings. But it was cold. Sterile. There were no photos. No flowers. No signs of life. "Daddy." A small blur launched itself from the top of the stairs. Minjun ran down the steps, his little legs pumping fast. He wasn't wearing a suit today. He was wearing dinosaur pajamas. He ran straight past his father. He ran straight to me. He slammed into my legs, wrapping his arms around my waist and burying his face in my stomach. I froze. Then instinct took over. I knelt down and hugged him back. He was shaking again. "Hey," I whispered, stroking his hair. "I'm okay. I'm here." He looked up at me, his eyes wide and wet. He squeezed my hand, then pointed at his father. He glared at Kang-woo. A 5-year-old glaring at a mafia boss. Kang-woo looked down at his son. His expression softened, just a fraction. The ice in his eyes melted by a degree. "He hasn't eaten since you left," Kang-woo said quietly. I looked up at him. "What?" He refused breakfast. He refused lunch. He just sat by the window, waiting. I looked back at Minjun. You have to eat, honey. You need to be strong. Minjun shook his head. He pointed at me, then made a motion of eating. He wants you to eat with him, Kang-woo translated. He sounded annoyed, but there was something else in his voice. Resignation? Fine, I said, standing up and holding Minjun's hand. I'm hungry anyway. Where's the kitchen? Third door on the left, Kang-woo said. Do not touch anything sharp. I'm not a child, I shot back. No, he murmured, his eyes lingering on my neck. You certainly aren't. I turned and marched Minjun to the kitchen, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The kitchen was massive. Stainless steel everything. It looked like a hospital operating room. I opened the fridge. It was full of expensive ingredients, truffles, wagyu beef, imported caviar, but nothing a kid would want to eat. Okay, I muttered. We need comfort food. I found some eggs, rice, and vegetables. I started cooking. Minjun sat on the counter, watching me with rapt attention. I hummed a jazz tune as I chopped onions. You hum when you focus, a voice said. I jumped, nearly slicing my finger. Kang-woo was leaning against the doorframe, watching me. He had taken off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His forearms were thick with muscle, covered in faint, intricate tattoos of dragons and lotus flowers. Don't sneak up on me, I scolded, pointing the knife at him. He smirked. This is my house. I walk where I please. He walked over to the counter. He picked up a piece of raw carrot I had just chopped and ate it. What are you making? Fried rice, I said. Seoul food style. With extra spice. Minjun doesn't like spicy food, he said dismissively. He doesn't like your food, I corrected. Watch. I finished the dish and plated it. I put a small bowl in front of Minjun. He looked at it. He sniffed it. Then he took a huge bite. His eyes lit up. He ate another bite. Then another. Kang-woo stared. He looked genuinely shocked. He is eating, he whispered. I told you, I said smugly. It needs a soul. Kang-woo looked from his son to me. The look on his face shifted. The cold calculation was gone, replaced by something warmer. Something dangerous. Make me a plate, he commanded. Say please. The room went silent. The guards by the door stiffened. No one told the dragon to say please. Kang-woo stared at me. His jaw clenched. Then, the corner of his mouth twitched. Please, he rasped. I served him a bowl. He took a bite. He chewed slowly. It is acceptable, he said. But he ate the whole bowl. For the next week, this became our routine. I was a prisoner, yes. I couldn't leave the estate. But inside the walls, I was something else. Not a servant. Not a guest. I was the only color in their gray world. I played the grand piano in the living room. Minjun would sit under it, listening. Kang-woo would work in his office with the door open, listening too. I wore the clothes Kang-woo had ordered for me, silk blouses, tailored pants, things that made me look expensive and dangerous. One afternoon, I was in the garden with Minjun. We were looking for bugs. Mrs. Vanessa. I turned. It was Kim, one of the younger guards. He was handsome, in a boyish K-pop way. He was smiling at me, holding a bottle of water. You look thirsty, he said, handing it to me. His fingers brushed mine. He lingered. Your hair looks really pretty in the sun today. I smiled back. Thank you, Kim. That's sweet. Kim. The voice was like a whip crack. We both froze. Kang-woo was standing on the balcony above us. He was gripping the railing so hard his knuckles were white. He wasn't wearing a suit jacket. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest. He looked feral. Master Ryu, Kim stammered, bowing low. I was just. Pack your bags, Kang-woo said. His voice was calm, but it was calm before a tsunami. You are reassigned. The Incheon shipment. Tonight. Kim paled. Master. Incheon it is a war zone right now. I know, Kang-woo said. Go. Before I send you somewhere worse. Kim ran. I stared up at the balcony. That wasn't necessary. He was just being nice. Kang-woo vaulted over the railing. He dropped 10 feet, landing in the grass with the grace of a panther. He straightened up and walked toward me. He didn't stop until he was crowding my space, forcing me to back up against a tree. He was not being nice, Kang-woo growled. He placed a hand on the tree trunk next to my head, boxing me in. He was flirting. So what? I challenged myself, my heart racing. I'm a single woman. I can flirt back if I want. No, he hissed. He leaned in, his nose brushing against mine. You cannot. Why? I breathed. Because I'm your prisoner? Because, he whispered, his voice rough with suppressed rage and desire, you are mine. My breath hitched. Yours. You live in my house. You eat my food. You protect my son. His hand moved from the tree to my waist. His grip was hard, possessive. You belong to the House of Ryu. And I do not share what is mine. I am not a thing, Kang-woo, I whispered, though my knees felt weak. No, he agreed, his eyes dropping to my lips. You are a problem. A beautiful, infuriating problem. He leaned closer. I thought he was going to kiss me. I wanted him to kiss me. God help me, I wanted it. Boss. A guard ran into the garden. Emergency. The elders are here. Kang-woo pulled back instantly. The mask slammed back down over his face. The heat vanished, replaced by ice. The elders, he repeated. Damn them. He looked at me one last time. Stay here. Do not come inside until I say so. He turned and strode toward the house. I waited 5 minutes. Then I followed him. I wasn't going to be told what to do. I crept into the house and hid behind a pillar near the main hall. 5 old men sat on the couches. They looked ancient and cruel. You are weak, Kang-woo, one of them rasped. A single father. A widower. The vipers see this. They see a man with no legacy. No queen. I am handling the vipers, Kang-woo said, standing tall in the center of the room. Handling is not enough, the elder shouted. You need to secure the alliance. You need a wife. We have arranged a match with the daughter of the Samsung heir. She is proper. She is Korean. She is safe. I do not want a safe wife, Kang-woo said coldly. You have no choice, the elder spat. Marry her by the end of the month, or we will remove you as head of the family. And we will take the boy. Take Minjun? My blood ran cold. Kang-woo still went. Deadly still. You will not touch my son, he said softly. Then take a wife. I have a wife, Kang-woo said. The room went silent. What? The elder asked. I have chosen a wife, Kang-woo lied smoothly. She is already living here. Who? The American. The elder sneered. Help. She is not helping, Kang-woo said. His voice rang out, clear and proud. She is the woman who saved my heir. She is the woman who tamed the dragon. And she will be my wife. I gasped. Kang-woo turned. He looked right at the pillar where I was hiding. He knew I was there. He had known the whole time. Come out, Vanessa, he commanded. I stepped out, my legs shaking. He held out his hand to me. Come here, he said. It wasn't an order. It was an invitation. I walked to him. I took his hand. His grip was iron tight. He pulled me to his side, wrapping an arm around my waist. He looked at the elders. Meet the future mistress of the Black Lotus, he announced. The elders looked horrified. She is foreign, one sputtered. She is black. This is an outrage. This is my decision, Kang-woo said. The wedding is in 2 weeks. At the gala. Get out. The elders stormed out, muttering curses. When the door closed, I pulled away from him. What was that? I shouted. Wife? Are you insane? It is a solution, he said calmly, pouring himself a drink. You need protection. I need a wife to keep my son. It is a transaction. A transaction? I felt tears sting my eyes. That's all I am to you. A deal? He put the glass down. He walked over to me. It is a contract, Vanessa, he said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. I had it drawn up this morning. He held it out. Sign it. You get safety. You get wealth. You get Minjun. And what do you get? I asked bitterly. He stepped closer. He reached out and touched my cheek. His thumb traced my lower lip. I get to keep you, he whispered. Legally. I looked at him. I looked at the contract. I thought of Minjun. I thought of the men who tried to kidnap me. And I thought of the way his heart was beating against my chest right now. Fast. Just as fast as mine. I'll sign, I whispered. But on one condition. Name it. This is a fake marriage, I said, trying to protect my own heart. You don't touch me. You don't own me. We are partners. That's it. Kang-woo stared at me. His eyes were dark, swirling with secrets. Partners, he agreed. But as he handed me the pen, I saw the smirk return. For now. Partners, he had said. But for the last 2 weeks, Ryu Kang-woo didn't treat me like a partner. He treated me like a classified weapon he was polishing for war. My life became a blur of lessons. Not piano lessons. Survival lessons. Stand up straight. He would bark at me across the dinner table. You are hunching. A queen does not hunch. She looks down on her subjects. I'm eating soup, Kang-woo, I would snap back. Relax. The vipers will not relax, he would counter, his eyes dark and serious. They look for weakness. If you look small, they will eat you. He moved my chair. He adjusted my posture. His hands were always on me, correcting, guiding, molding. Every touch was a lesson, and every lesson felt like a caress I shouldn't enjoy. Then came the day of the gala. I woke up to find my bedroom filled with racks of clothes. A team of terrified-looking stylists stood by the wall, trembling. Kang-woo sat in the corner in a wingback chair, drinking espresso, watching them like a hawk. No, he said, before I had even fully opened my eyes. He pointed at a rack of pastel pinks and soft beiges. Take those out. Burn them. But sir, the head stylist squeaked. These are the season's trends. Soft femininity is in style for... My wife is not soft, Kang-woo interrupted. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated in my chest from across the room. She is not a flower to be plucked. She is the fire that burns the garden down. Bring me something dangerous. The stylists scrambled. They pulled out dress after dress. He rejected them all. Too revealing, he growled at a sheer black number. I do not share. Too boring, he sneered at a navy blue gown. She disappears in the dark. Finally, the stylist pulled out a garment bag from the back. She unzipped it slowly. It was crimson. A deep, bloody, magnificent red. It wasn't satin or tulle. It was velvet and silk, structured with a corset bodice that looked like armor, flowing into a skirt that moved like liquid ruby. Kang-woo stood up. He walked over to the dress. He touched the fabric. Then he looked at me, still in my silk pajamas, my hair messy from sleep. That one, he whispered. The prep took hours. They oiled my skin until it glowed like dark copper. They straightened my hair until it fell in a sleek, obsidian sheet down my back. They painted my lips the same blood red as the dress. When I finally stepped into the gown, I felt heavy, powerful. The corset held me tight, forcing my spine straight. I couldn't hunch if I wanted to. Everyone out, Kang-woo's voice came from the doorway. The stylists fled like mice escaping a cat. I turned to face the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. I looked like a villain. I looked like his wife. I saw Kang-woo's reflection appear behind mine. He had changed into a tuxedo. Black on black. No tie, just a diamond stud at his collar. He looked devastating. He didn't speak. He just walked up behind me, close enough that his chest brushed my bare back. I stopped breathing. You are missing something, he murmured. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a long, velvet box. He snapped it open. I gasped. It was a necklace. But not a delicate chain. It was a thick band of platinum, encrusted with diamonds that looked sharp, almost jagged. In the center sat a ruby the size of a quail egg. It was beautiful. And it looked exactly like a collar. Kang-woo, I whispered, touching my throat. This is too much. I can't wear this. It looks like I own you. He finished for me. He took the necklace out. The metal was cold against my skin as he draped it around my neck. Tonight I do, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous octave. Tonight, you are not Vanessa the music teacher. You are Mrs. Ryu. And this. He clasped the lock at the nape of my neck. It clicked with a sound of finality. This tells every man in that room that if they look at you, they die. He rested his hands on my shoulders, his thumbs digging into my collarbones. He leaned down, placing his chin on my shoulder, looking at our reflection together. The Dark King and his Crimson Queen. You hate it, he observed, watching my eyes in the mirror. I don't hate it, I admitted, my voice trembling. I'm scared of it. It feels permanent. Good, he whispered. He turned his head and pressed a kiss to the sensitive spot right below my ear. My knees gave out. I would have fallen if he wasn't holding me up. Fear keeps you sharp, he murmured against my skin. Now, are you ready to go to war? I took a deep breath. I looked at the woman in the mirror. She looked back with fire in her eyes. Yes, I said. The drive to the gala was silent, but the air in the armored car was thick with tension. Minjun had been left with the head of security, armed to the teeth. We were alone. Kang-woo's hand rested on his thigh, inches from mine. I could feel the heat coming off him. The Vipers will be there, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. Not the soldiers. The leadership. The ones who wear suits and smile while they order hits. What do I do? I asked. Nothing, he said. You stand beside me. You look bored. You look expensive. And if anyone talks to you, you answer with as few words as possible. Mystery breeds fear. The car slowed. We had arrived. The flashbulbs were blinding even through the tinted windows. It looked like a lightning storm outside. Showtime, Kang-woo muttered. The driver opened the door. The noise hit us instantly. Shouting. Cameras clicking. A wall of sound. Kang-woo stepped out first. The screams got louder. Master Ryu. Master Ryu. He buttoned his jacket with one hand, looking utterly unbothered. Then he turned back to the car. He offered me his hand. I took it. I stepped out onto the red carpet. For a second, there was silence. The photographers stopped clicking. The reporters stopped shouting. They stared. The black woman in the blood-red dress, wearing the Ryu family diamonds, holding the hand of the Devil of Seoul. Then, chaos erupted. Who is she? Is that the wife? Look at the necklace. Kang-woo didn't look at the cameras. He pulled me into his side, his arm wrapping around my waist like an iron band. He walked us down the carpet, ignoring the questions. Keep walking, he whispered in my ear. Don't smile. You are above them. We entered the ballroom. It was a sea of gold and crystal. The elite of Seoul were there, CEOs, politicians, movie stars. When we walked in, the conversation died. Heads turned. Eyes widened. I felt like an imposter. I felt like everyone could see the trembling girl from the alleyway underneath the velvet and diamonds. Breathe, Kang-woo commanded softly. You are doing well. A man separated himself from the crowd and walked toward us. He was older, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Kang-woo, the man said, bowing slightly. We didn't expect to see you. And a guest. My wife, Kang-woo corrected, his voice carrying clearly across the silent room. Vanessa Ryu. The man's eyes widened. Wife? We heard rumors, but surely you jest. A foreigner? And so sudden. The man looked me up and down. His gaze was insulting. He looked at me like I was a hired escort, not a wife. Charmed, the man sneered, extending a hand to me. I am Director Han. I assume you don't speak Korean? Should I speak slowly? He was mocking me. I felt Kang-woo's body tense beside me. I felt the violence coiling in his muscles. He was about to snap this man's arm. I put my hand on Kang-woo's chest, stopping him. I stepped forward. I looked Director Han dead in the eye. Your Korean is a bit slurrish, director, I said in perfect, fluent Korean. I had lived here for 4 years, I studied hard. Perhaps you have had too much champagne already? Or is your manners just as poor as your suit fitting? Director Han's jaw dropped. The people nearby gasped. Kang-woo froze. I looked up at him. I expected him to be angry that I spoke out of turn. But when I looked at his eyes, they weren't angry. They were burning. He looked at me with a mixture of shock and absolute, unadulterated pride. My wife has a sharp tongue, Kang-woo said to the stunned director, a dark smirk curling his lips. I suggest you run along before she decides to critique your business portfolio next. Director Han scurried away. Kang-woo leaned down, his lips brushing my ear again. I told you to be quiet, he whispered. I improvised, I whispered back, my heart racing. Do it again, he growled. God, Vanessa. Do it again. He pulled me closer, his hand sliding lower on my back, claiming me in front of everyone. The fake marriage was supposed to be a contract. A performance. But the way he was looking at me right now, there was nothing fake about it. Dance with me, he ordered. There's no music, I said. As if on cue, the orchestra began to play a waltz. There is now, he said. He dragged me to the dance floor. We were the only ones there. Every eye was on us. He placed one hand on my waist, the other clasping my hand. He pulled me so close our bodies were flush from chest to knee. I didn't know you spoke Korean, he murmured as we began to move. You never asked, I said. You just assumed I was a helpless tourist. I never thought you were helpless, he said, spinning me around. The crimson dress flared out like a blooming rose. I thought you were dangerous. I was right. Is that why you locked me in your house? I asked, looking up at him. Because you're scared of me? He stopped spinning. He held me still in the middle of the floor, swaying gently to the music. His eyes searched mine, stripping away the layers of makeup and pretense. I locked you in my house, he whispered, because the moment I saw you in that alleyway, I knew. Knew what? That if I let you go, he said, his voice raw, I would burn the city down just to find you again. My breath hitched. That's obsession, Kang-woo. Not love. I am a monster, Vanessa, he said, leaning his forehead against mine. I don't know the difference. I should have run. I should have pushed him away. But in that moment, surrounded by enemies, wearing a diamond collar, dancing with the devil, I didn't want to run. I wanted to burn with him. Master Ryu. The scream shattered the moment. The music stopped. A man ran onto the dance floor. It was the head of security. He was covered in blood. The south gate, he screamed. They breached the south gate. It's a raid. Gunfire erupted from the balcony. Glass shattered. People screamed. Kang-woo didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He grabbed me, spun me around, and shoved me behind him. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a sleek, black handgun. Stay behind me, he roared, his voice transforming from the lover to the killer in a split second. He aimed at the balcony. Welcome to the family, Vanessa, he yelled over the gunfire. And then he started shooting. The sound of a ballroom screaming is something you never forget. It's a high, frantic pitch that cuts right through your bones. Down. Kang-woo roared, shoving me behind a heavy marble pillar. Bullets chipped the stone inches from my face, sending dust into my eyes. I crouched low, my hands over my head, the crimson velvet dress pooling around me like a puddle of blood. Stay here, he ordered. He stepped out from behind the pillar. He didn't look scared. He looked bored. Annoyed. Bang. Bang. 2 men on the balcony dropped. He moved with a terrifying efficiency. No wasted movement. No hesitation. He was a machine built for this exact moment. But I wasn't a soldier. I was a piano teacher. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I looked around. People were trampling each other to get to the exits. Champagne glasses, thankfully not shattering in slow motion, but being crushed under panicked feet, littered the floor. Vanessa. Kang-woo was back. He grabbed my arm, hauling me up. We move. Now. My heels, I gasped. I couldn't run in 6-inch stilettos. Leave them, he said. I kicked them off. I ran barefoot across the cold marble, hiking up my heavy skirt with one hand, clutching Kang-woo's tuxedo jacket with the other. We reached the service exit. His security team was there, engaging the shooters. Master Ryu, the head of security, shouted, reloading his weapon. We have the perimeter. The car is waiting at the south loading dock. Who are they? Kang-woo demanded, pushing me through the door ahead of him. Vipers? Yes, sir. But it's strange. They aren't pushing. They're just shooting. Like they're trying to pin us down. Kang-woo stopped. We were in a concrete hallway, the muffled sounds of the gala fading behind us. He froze. His hand, which had been gripping my arm tightly, suddenly went slack. His eyes went wide. For the first time tonight, I saw genuine fear. They aren't trying to kill me, he whispered. They're stalling me. Stalling? I asked, breathless. Why? He looked at me. Then he looked at his watch. Minjun. The name hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Oh God, I breathed. The house. They're at the house. Move, he screamed. We didn't run this time. We sprinted. We burst out of the loading dock into the rainy night. The black armored sedan was idling there. Kang-woo didn't wait for the driver. He ripped the driver's door open, hauled the man out, and shoved him aside. Get in, he yelled at me. I dove into the passenger seat. He slammed the car into gear before I had even closed the door. The tires screeched, burning rubber on the wet asphalt as we peeled out of the hotel lot. He drove like a madman. We wove through the Seoul traffic, running red lights, driving on the shoulder. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the city lights into streaks of neon. Call the house, he ordered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Use the car phone. Speed dial 1. I fumbled with the console, my hands shaking so bad I could barely press the button. Ring. 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 Pick up, I whispered. Please, pick up. Ring. 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 Pick up. Kang-woo shouted, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. Click. Master Ryu's residence, a voice answered. It wasn't the housekeeper. It wasn't a guard. It was a rough, unfamiliar voice. Who is this? Kang-woo asked. His voice was deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes before a massacre. Hello, dragon, the voice sneered. Nice party? We heard the fireworks. Where's my son? Kang-woo asked. The boy? Oh, he's quiet. Much quieter than your guards were. They screamed a lot. My blood ran cold. If you touch him, Kang-woo whispered, I will peel the skin from your bones slowly. I will make you beg for hell. Big talk for a man stuck in traffic, the voice laughed. You have 20 minutes, dragon. Then we take the boy to the docks. You know what happens to little princes at the docks. Click. The line went dead. Kang-woo didn't scream. He didn't curse. He just pressed the gas pedal to the floor. The engine roared. The car surged forward, the speedometer climbing past 180 kilometers per hour. I looked at him. His face was a mask of pure, concentrated rage. But his eyes were wet. He's 5, Kang-woo whispered, almost to himself. He's 5 years old. He doesn't speak. He can't even scream for help. We'll get there, I said, reaching out to touch his arm. Kang-woo, look at me. We will get there. He glanced at me. I promised her, he choked out. His mother. On her deathbed. I promised I would keep him safe. I failed. You haven't failed yet, I said fiercely. Drive. We reached the hill leading to the mansion in record time. The gate was open. Not just open. It was bent off its hinges, hanging crookedly like a broken limb. Smoke was rising from the guard booth. Kang-woo didn't slow down. He drove the car straight through the ruined gate and up the winding driveway. Bodies littered the lawn. His men. Some were moving, most were not. He slammed the brakes in front of the main entrance. The heavy oak doors were smashed in. Stay in the car, he ordered, pulling a fresh magazine from the glove compartment and loading his gun. No, I said, unbuckling my seatbelt. Vanessa. He trusts me. I shouted back. If he's hiding, he won't come out for you. You scare him. He'll come out for me. Kang-woo looked at me. He saw the fire in my eyes, the same fire he had seen in the mirror earlier. Stay behind me, he said. If I shoot, you drop. We ran into the house. It was silent. The same eerie silence as the library that first night. The foyer was a mess. Vases shattered. Paintings slashed. Minjun. I screamed. Minjun. It's Vanessa. Silence. Check the panic room, Kang-woo whispered. Library. Behind the bookshelf. We moved toward the library. Kang-woo checked every corner, his gun raised. I followed, my bare feet making no sound on the glass-covered floor. We reached the library. The bookshelf was moved. The panic room door was open. No, Kang-woo breathed. We ran inside. It was empty. A single dinosaur plushie lay on the floor. It was torn. Kang-woo dropped to his knees. He picked up the toy. He stared at it, his hands shaking uncontrollably. They took him, he whispered. They actually took him. He looked broken. The dragon of Seoul, the man who terrified everyone, looked like a child who had lost his world. Kang-woo, I said softly. I failed, he repeated. He's gone. They'll kill him. The Vipers don't take hostages. They send messages. He gripped the toy so hard I thought it would rip. Kang-woo. I shouted, grabbing his face with both hands. Look at me. He looked up. His eyes were wild, lost. We are not giving up, I said firmly. Get up. You are the king, remember? You are the monster. Be the monster. I don't know where they went, he admitted, his voice cracking. The docks, there are hundreds of warehouses. Wait, I said. I looked around the panic room. My eyes landed on the wall. There was a drawing. Minjun liked to draw on the walls when he was scared. It was a scribbly drawing of a boat. And a number. 309, I read. Container 309? Kang-woo looked at the drawing. No, he said, his eyes narrowing. That's not a container number. That's the time. 309. Or a location, I suggested. Dock 3? Warehouse 9. Kang-woo stood up. The despair was vanishing, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. Warehouse 309, he said. It belongs to the Viper clan. It's their processing center. He turned to me. He grabbed my shoulders. You stay here, he said. Lock the doors. Call the backup team. I'm coming with you, I said. Absolutely not. It's a slaughterhouse. He's my son too. I yelled. The words hung in the air. I hadn't meant to say it. But it was true. In 2 weeks, that little silent boy had burrowed into my heart. I loved him. Kang-woo stared at me. He looked at the necklace I was still wearing, the collar marking me as his. Your son, he repeated softly. He nodded once. A sharp, decisive jerk of his head. Then let's go get our son back. He took my hand. We ran back to the car. But as we stepped out into the rain, a spotlight hit us. We froze. A helicopter was hovering above the mansion. Is that yours? I yelled over the noise of the rotors. Kang-woo looked up. He squinted against the light. No, he said, rocking the slide of his gun. That's the police. Sirens wailed in the distance. They were surrounding the hill. We can't leave, I realized. If we leave, they will arrest you. If we stay, Minjun dies. Kang-woo looked at the police cars blocking the driveway. Then he looked at me. Do you trust me? He asked. Yes. Can you drive? Yes. He tossed me the keys to the armored sedan. Take the back exit, he said. Through the woods. It's a dirt path. The police won't know it. What about you? I asked, catching the keys. I'm going to create a diversion, he said, turning toward the police barricade. Kang-woo, no. They'll kill you. He looked back at me over his shoulder. He smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. Go save our son, Vanessa. I'll buy you time. He walked straight toward the lights and the guns, his hands raised, drawing every eye and every weapon toward him. I didn't watch him get shot. I turned and ran for the car. I had a boy to save. And a husband to come back for. I didn't look back. If I looked back, I would see the lights of the police cruisers reflecting off the rain-slicked driveway. I would see Kang-woo walking toward them, hands raised, sacrificing his freedom, maybe his life, so I could slip away. I slammed the armored sedan into gear and tore through the back garden. The tires churned up mud, spraying the pristine white roses with black dirt. The car bucked and slid as I hit the dirt path leading into the woods behind the estate. I was driving a 3-ton tank in a crimson ball gown, barefoot, crying so hard I could barely see the trees rushing past. "Don't die," I whispered to the empty seat beside me. "You promised, Kang-woo. You promised you wouldn't leave me." The path was narrow, meant for ATVs, not a luxury sedan. Branches whipped against the armored glass, sounding like gunshots. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white, channeling every ounce of rage and fear into the gas pedal. I burst out of the woods onto the highway, cutting off a taxi. I ignored the horn. I ignored the speed limit. Warehouse 309. The docks were a labyrinth of steel and shadows. Shipping containers were stacked like skyscrapers, creating narrow canyons of darkness. The rain was coming down harder now, a deluge that threatened to wash the city into the sea. I found it. Warehouse 309 sat at the end of a long pier, isolated, rusting, and ominous. A single light bulb flickered above the bay door. There were guards. 2 of them, smoking under the awning, assault rifles slung casually over their shoulders. I slowed down. I looked at the gun Kang-woo had left on the passenger seat. It was heavy, cold, and lethal. I had practiced with it for weeks, but shooting a paper target in a basement was different from shooting a man. "You're the weapon," Kang-woo had told me. I picked up the gun. I checked the safety. It was off. I looked at the warehouse. Min-jun was there. My silent, broken little boy was in there with monsters. I didn't stop the car. I floored it. The engine roared like a waking dragon. The guards looked up, their eyes widening in shock as the black sedan accelerated toward them. They scrambled, diving out of the way just as I hit the bay door. Crash! The metal groaned and buckled. The armored front of the car tore through the corrugated steel like it was paper. Glass shattered, the warehouse windows blowing out from the impact. The car skidded to a halt in the center of the warehouse floor, surrounded by dust and debris. I kicked the door open. I stepped out. The warehouse was cavernous, smelling of oil and old fish. In the center, under a harsh halogen light, was a chair. And tied to the chair, small and trembling, was Min-jun. He was crying silently, tears tracking through the dust on his face. "Min-jun!" I screamed. Well, a voice echoed from the shadows. "The nanny has claws." A man stepped into the light. He was huge, wearing a snakeskin jacket that looked ridiculous and terrifying at the same time. He held a knife. He was standing right behind Min-jun, the blade hovering inches from the boy's neck. 6 other men emerged from behind crates, guns raised. I stood there in my ruined crimson dress, the hem muddy and torn, holding Kang-woo's gun with both hands. "Let him go," I said. My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by that. I was terrified, but my voice was steady. It was the voice of a mother. "Where is the dragon?" the leader sneered. "Did he send his pet to do his dirty work?" "He's coming," I lied. "And if you don't release the boy, he will burn this place to the ground with you inside it." "He's not coming," the leader laughed. "We have scanners. The police have the hill surrounded. Your boyfriend is in cuffs right now. You are alone, sweetheart." He pressed the knife closer to Min-jun. The boy flinched, squeezing his eyes shut. "Drop the gun," the leader commanded. "Or I cut him. Just a little. Maybe an ear." "No," I shouted. I lowered the gun slowly. "Kick it over here." I hesitated. If I gave up the gun, we were both dead. If I kept it, Min-jun bled. I looked at Minjun. He opened his eyes. He looked at me. And in that moment, I saw something change in his face. He wasn't looking at the knife. He was looking at my hand. He gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He trusted me. I dropped the gun. It clattered on the concrete. Good girl, the leader smirked. Now, come here. Let's see if you're as pretty up close as you look on the news. I took a step forward. Then another. That's close enough, he said. I just want the boy, I said, raising my hands. Take me. I'm the wife. I'm the one Kang-woo cares about. I'm worth more. Let the boy go. The leader paused. He looked at me, his eyes greedy. A trade, he mused. The wife for the son? That is tempting. The dragon would pay a fortune for you. Yes, I said, walking closer. He would. Take me. Vanessa, no. Minjun screamed. It was the first time I had ever heard his voice. It was scratchy, unused, and terrified. But it was loud. The leader looked down, startled by the sudden noise from the mute boy. In that split second of distraction, I moved. I didn't run away. I didn't lunge for the gun. I reached into the bodice of my dress and pulled out the second gun, a small, silver pistol Kang-woo had strapped to my thigh weeks ago, just in case. I didn't aim for the head. I wasn't a sniper. I aimed for the biggest target I could see. Bang! The leader screamed, clutching his shoulder. The knife clattered to the floor. Run, Minjun! I shrieked, firing 2 more shots blindly toward the other men to scatter them. Minjun didn't run. He couldn't. He was tied up. I sprinted toward him, diving behind a stack of crates just as the room erupted in gunfire. Bullets sparked against the metal container above our heads. I reached Minjun and used my body to shield him. I fumbled with the ropes, my fingers slick with sweat and rain. You spoke, I gasped, tearing at the knots. You spoke, baby. Behind you. Minjun yelled. I spun around. One of the thugs had flanked us. He was standing right there, a shotgun leveled at my chest. Game over, bitch, he growled. He pumped the shotgun. I squeezed my eyes shut, pulling Minjun into my chest, waiting for the end. Click. The sound was small. But in the echo of the warehouse, it sounded like thunder. It wasn't the shotgun. It was the sound of a lighter opening. The thug froze. His eyes went wide, staring at something behind me. Drop it, a voice said. It was a voice made of gravel and smoke. A voice that I knew better than my own heartbeat. Master Ryu, the thug stammered, the shotgun shaking in his hands. I turned my head slowly. Ryu Kang-woo stood in the massive hole my car had made in the wall. He was soaking wet. His tuxedo was torn, his white shirt stained with blood that wasn't his. He was holding a gun in one hand and a gold lighter in the other. Behind him, the night was filled with shadows, his men. The elite guard. They had arrived. I told you, Kang-woo said, stepping into the light. His eyes were black pits of absolute murder. If you touched them, I would bring hell. He flicked the lighter closed. Kill them all, he commanded. Leave the leader for me. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Kang-woo's men swarmed in like locusts. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. I buried Minjun's face on my shoulder so he wouldn't see. I covered his ears so he wouldn't hear the screams. I just watched Kang-woo. He walked through the gunfire like a ghost. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He walked straight toward us. A thug tried to rush him with a knife. Kang-woo didn't even look. He just pistol-whipped the man across the jaw, sending him crumbling to the floor, and kept walking. He reached us. He dropped to his knees in the dust right in front of me. He didn't check the perimeter. He didn't check his men. He grabbed my face with bloody hands. Vanessa, he choked out. Vanessa. He scanned me frantically, my eyes, my neck, my arms. Then he looked at Minjun. He spoke, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Kang-woo, he spoke to save me. Kang-woo looked at his son. Minjun looked at his father. Appa, the boy whispered. She came back. Kang-woo let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. He pulled us both into his arms. He hugged us so tight I couldn't breathe. He buried his face in my neck, shaking violently. I thought I lost you, he whispered into my skin. I thought I lost both of you. The police? I asked, pulling back slightly to look at him. How did you? I bought the police chief a new island, he said breathlessly. 10 minutes ago. He kissed my forehead. Then he kissed Minjun's head. Let's go home, he said. It's over. I looked at the carnage around us. I looked at the man who had just ordered a massacre to save us. I nodded. Home, I agreed. We walked out of the warehouse, Kang-woo carrying Minjun, his other hand gripping mine like a lifeline. But as we walked toward the waiting cars, I didn't know that the danger hadn't ended. The physical war was over. But the psychological war was just about to begin. Because back at the mansion, in the chaos of the cleanup, a door had been left unlocked. A door to a room I was never supposed to see. And inside that room lay the truth that would shatter my happy ending into a million pieces. The drive back to the mansion was silent, but it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't the terrified silence of the ride to the warehouse or the cold, awkward silence of our first meeting. It was the silence of 3 people who had walked through fire and come out the other side, burned but breathing. Minjun was asleep in my lap, clutching my ruined dress with one hand and his father's jacket with the other. Kang-woo drove with one hand. His other hand was wrapped around mine, resting on the center console. He squeezed my fingers every few minutes, as if checking to make sure I was still there. Still real. You're bleeding, he whispered, glancing at my arm where a piece of glass had grazed me. It's nothing, I said, leaning my head back against the seat. I was exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me shaking and cold. It is not nothing, he said, his voice rough. Dr. Park is waiting at the house. He will check both of you. I'm fine, Kang-woo. Really? He pulled the car over to the side of the deserted highway. Kang-woo. He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned to me. In the dim light of the dashboard, he looked wrecked. His hair was messy, his face streaked with soot and blood. You are not fine, he said, reaching out to cut my cheek. His thumb brushed away a tear I didn't know had fallen. You walked into a war zone for a child who isn't yours. You faced a gun for a man you barely know. I know you, I whispered. I know you're a good father. He let out a ragged breath. He leaned in, pressing his forehead against mine. I am not a good man, Vanessa, he murmured. But for you, I would be anything. He didn't kiss me. He just held me there for a moment, breathing in my scent, grounding himself. Thank you, he whispered against my skin. For bringing him back to me. He brought himself back, I said softly, looking down at the sleeping boy. He spoke, Kang-woo. He called you Appa. Kang-woo looked down at his son. A single tear tracked through the grime on his cheek. He wiped it away quickly, the mask of the dragon sliding back into place. Let's go home, he said. When we arrived, the mansion was a hive of activity. Crews were already repairing the gate. Cleaners were scrubbing the driveway. Kang-woo carried Minjun upstairs. I followed, limping slightly on my bruised feet. We tucked him into his bed. He didn't wake up. Stay, Minjun mumbled in his sleep, grabbing my hand as I tried to pull away. I'm here, baby, I whispered, kissing his forehead. I'm not going anywhere. Kang-woo stood in the doorway, watching us. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he just nodded and turned away. I need to debrief the security team, he said. Go to your room. Shower. Rest. I will come to you later. I went to my room. I stripped off the ruined crimson dress, the armor that had seen me through the worst night of my life. I stood under the hot water for a long time, watching the dirt and blood swirl down the drain. I put on a silk robe, black this time, and walked out onto the balcony. The rain had stopped. The city lights twinkled below, oblivious to the violence on the hill. I felt safe. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly safe. Kang-woo had come for me. He had burned down the world for me. Maybe this fake marriage wasn't so fake after all. I wanted to see him. I wanted to ask him what happened next. Do we stay married? Do we pretend? Or do we try for real? I walked out into the hallway. It was quiet. The guards were all outside patrolling the perimeter. I walked toward Kang-woo's study. The door was slightly ajar. Kang-woo. I called out softly. No answer. I pushed the door open. The study was empty. He must be downstairs with the men. I turned to leave, but something caught my eye. The bookshelf on the far wall, the one that hid the panic room, was moved aside. But the panic room door was closed. Next to it, there was another door. A small, unassuming wooden door that blended into the paneling. I had never noticed it before. It was open. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. It killed the cat. And tonight, it was about to kill my peace of mind. I walked toward it. Kang-woo. I whispered again. I stepped inside. It wasn't a closet. It was a dark room. The kind used for developing photos. The smell of chemicals was faint, overpowered by the smell of obsession. The walls were covered, floor to ceiling. I reached out and turned on the red safety light. The room flooded with a bloody glow. My breath hitched in my throat. Photos. Hundreds of them. I stepped closer to the wall on my left. There was a photo of me walking in the rain. Date, yesterday. There was a photo of me teaching Minjun piano. Date, last week. Okay. That was creepy, but he was watching his son. I could understand that. I moved to the next wall. A photo of me at the airport. Arriving in Seoul. Date, for years ago. My blood ran cold. I moved down the line. A photo of me at my university graduation in Chicago. Date, 7 years ago. A photo of me playing violin on a street corner in New York. Date, 6 years ago. I stumbled back, my hand covering my mouth. He had been watching me for years. Long before I found Minjun in that alley. Long before the accident. No, I whispered. This isn't possible. I spun around to the desk in the center of the room. There was a file. It was labeled Project Moon. I opened it. It wasn't a mafia dossier. It was a genealogy report. My genealogy report. Subject, Vanessa King. Status, match found. Prophecy alignment, 99.8%. Prophecy? What prophecy? I flipped the page. There was a letter. Old, yellowed paper. The dragon cannot rule alone. He must find the moon from the west. The one with the song in her blood. Only she can tame the beast. Only she can bear the true air. There were notes in the margins. Kang-woo's handwriting. Sharp. Angular. Found her. Chicago. 2018. Too young. Wait. Seoul. 2022. Initiate contact? No. Wait. 2026. The boy is ready. Send him. Send him. The words blurred before my eyes. Minjun didn't get lost that night. He didn't wander into that alley by mistake. Kang-woo sent him. He used his own traumatized son as bait. To lure me in. To trap me. I felt sick. I felt violated. Every moment, the job loss, the apartment eviction, the rescue, it was all orchestrated. It was a play. And I was the puppet. I found my collection. The voice came from the doorway. I spun around. Ryu Kang-woo stood there. He wasn't wearing his ruined tuxedo. He was wearing a fresh black shirt, the sleeves rolled up. He looked clean. Calm. He didn't look sorry. You. I choked out, backing away until I hit the wall of photos. You stalked me. For 7 years. He walked into the room. The red light cast shadows across his face, making him look demonic. I watched over you, he corrected gently. There is a difference. You sent Minjun. I screamed, throwing the file at him. Papers fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. You used your son to trap me. I used the only bait I knew you couldn't resist, he said, stepping over the papers. Your heart. Why? I sobbed. Why me? Because of some stupid prophecy? Because of a superstition? Because, he said, stopping inches from me. He reached out and placed his hands on the wall on either side of my head, trapping me, You are the only one who fits, Vanessa. You are the only one who can handle the fire without burning. I'm leaving, I said, trying to push past him. I'm taking Minjun and I'm leaving. You're insane. He didn't budge. He felt like a stone wall. You can't leave, he whispered, his face moving closer to mine. You signed the contract. The contract is fake. The marriage is fake, he agreed. His eyes dropped to my lips. But the ownership? That is very real. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. He locked the door behind him. Click. My heart stopped. You can't keep me here. I already have, he murmured. I waited 7 years for you to walk through my door, Vanessa. Do you really think I'm going to let you walk out? He leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear. The hunt is over, my moon. You're home. He kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It wasn't a thank you kiss. It was a seal. A claim. A promise of a lifetime in a golden cage. And as the screen fades to black, one question remains. Did I just marry a monster? Or did I just become one? Wait. Don't go yet. If your jaw is on the floor right now, you're not alone. What do you think Vanessa should do? Run? Or stay and fight for her place as the queen? Let me know in the comments. Are you team run or team roll? If you enjoyed this roller coaster of an Afro-Korean love story, please subscribe to Stories Pulse and hit that notification bell so you don't miss part 2 where we find out exactly what that prophecy means. Thanks for watching, besties. See you in the next chapter.